Young Armand found himself in a heated confrontation with a man who had insulted his father, all stemming from the delivery of a letter from Vincent Van Gogh. Armand landed a punch to the man's face before storming into a nearby bar. Unbeknownst to him, the letter had slipped into his pocket during the scuffle. An officer soon arrived, inquiring about the reason for their brawl. The man explained that the fight had erupted over something they called the Crazy Red. He handed the officer the dropped letter, who then returned it to Armand, remarking that it had fallen behind him. Armand, now sitting with the officer, insisted that the letter wasn't his, it was meant for Vincent's brother, Theo Van Gogh. He explained that Vincent's old landlord, Gino, had discovered it during a clear-out and entrusted it to his father. The officer tried to reason with Armand, suggesting that his father simply wanted to pay his respects. This angered Armand further, as his father was already disliked by the townspeople for refusing to sign a petition to expel Vincent from the town. A lady at another table chimed in, expressing her support for the petition, claiming that Vincent was a madman. The officer disagreed, finding Vincent to be an intriguing individual. He explained that Vincent's eccentricities began to surface after he met Gauguin, who had moved into Vincent's yellow house, turning it into a hostel for artists. Gauguin quickly became the master of the hostel, but their relationship soured, leading Gauguin to leave abruptly, ignoring Vincent's pleas. With Gauguin gone, Vincent spiraled into anxiety and depression. One day, he visited the bar and presented Beverly, a regular patron, with a wrapped gift before leaving abruptly. When she opened it, she let out a horrified scream. It contained a human ear, drenched in blood. Armand admitted that his memories of Vincent were marred by the aftermath of the ear incident, as his father faced public humiliation for cleaning up Vincent's gruesome mess. In the evening, Mr. Roulin set out in search of his son, who was supposed to be on a train to Paris. He approached the men sitting outside the bar and inquired about his son's whereabouts. They informed him that Armand was inside, so he entered the establishment. Inside, Mr. Roulin found Armand slumbering with his head resting on the table. Leading his son out of the bar, Mr. Roulin decided to take him to a restaurant to help him regain his senses. As they sat in the restaurant, Mr. Roulin urged Armand to convey his condolences to Theo Van Gogh. Armand added that Vincent seemed weak when he took his own life. In response, Mr. Roulin mused that as Armand would grow older, he would come to realize that life could transform even the strongest individuals into timid and fragile beings. Mr. Roulin went on to explain that after the ear incident, Vincent had faced relentless torment. Children, neighbors, the police, the mayor, and the entire town had turned against the troubled artist. Vincent had sought therapy in St. Remy to recover, and he had written a letter to Mr. Roulin, assuring him of his well-being. Yet, it remained a mystery why he decided to end his life just 6 weeks later. Armand questioned the significance of delivering the letter now. Mr. Roulin, the postman, emphasized the importance of such a final message, as everyone would cherish the last words of their loved ones. He boarded the train to Paris. Upon reaching the Paris station, Armand disembarked and began searching for Theo in the bustling city. He visited Vincent's art supplier's shop and asked about Theo Van Gogh. The shop owner offered him a drink, and Armand accepted, taking a seat. Armand inquired further, and the shop owner, Tanguy, revealed that he might not be able to meet Theo. After Vincent's passing, Theo had declined both physically and mentally. He had spent his last day with Vincent, repeatedly asking why his brother had taken his own life. Vincent had evaded the question, preferring to talk about life rather than death. This unresolved inquiry had left Theo deeply depressed, leading to his own passing 6 months after Vincent's burial. Armand probed into Vincent's cause of death, and Tanguy disclosed that Vincent had shot himself in a field while painting, for reasons unknown. Tanguy also shared that Vincent's unhappiness had haunted him since childhood, as he had always yearned to belong within his family, but they had never made him feel welcome. Theo had been his sole source of support. Despite Vincent's attempts to work in his uncle's art dealership and later in the church, he had faced disgrace and failure. Even his role as a lowly missionary had ended in dismissal. Theo's unwavering belief in Vincent had always given him a sense of purpose and pride. He had picked up the brush at the age of 28, and from that moment, there was no stopping his artistic journey. Then came Paris, a city where every artist eventually finds themselves, as it's the epicenter of the art world. While many artists settled in Paris, Vincent had arrived with a different purpose: to learn and grow. Once he had acquired the knowledge he sought, he moved on. Tanguy continued, recounting a meeting with Vincent 2 years later. At the time, Vincent's star was on the rise, and he seemed to believe that his story would have a happy ending. However, just 6 weeks later, Vincent's sudden passing left everyone in a state of shock. Tanguy explained that many artists regarded Vincent as a martyr of art. In just 8 years, he had transformed from an amateur to an expert artist. He mentioned that Vincent's funeral had been attended by Dr. Gachet, who had cared for him in Auvers. Tanguy's emotional speech moved the audience deeply. An hour later, he removed some of Vincent's finest paintings from the walls, seemingly with the full confidence of Theo. He urged Armand to meet Dr. Gachet and inquire about the circumstances of Vincent's passing, as the doctor might still have connections with the Van Gogh family. Tanguy then handed Armand the letter, instructing him to return it to his father. Armand boarded a train bound for Auvers, determined to meet Dr. Gachet and deliver Vincent's letter. Along the way, he penned a letter to his father, informing him of Theo's passing and his intention to deliver the letter to a Van Gogh family trustee. Upon arriving in Auvers, he made his way to Dr. Gachet's residence, where the sound of a piano greeted him. He glimpsed Margaret Gachet through an open door. As he continued down the path, Louise Chevalier spotted him and inquired about his purpose for visiting. Armand explained his desire to meet Dr. Gachet in person to deliver Vincent's letter and learn more about Vincent himself. Louise warned him that Vincent had been a peculiar and aloof person with cold eyes and advised against stirring up old memories. Disheartened, Armand left and began walking along the road, smoking a cigarette, trying to reach the Gachet residence. As he made his way, rain began to fall, and he sought shelter in an inn. There, he met the innkeeper and requested a room. She kindly offered him a hot coffee and inquired about his presence in Auvers. Armand explained his mission, to deliver the late Vincent Van Gogh's letter. Upon hearing Vincent's name, the innkeeper became melancholic and shared a story about how Vincent had once stayed in one of their inn's rooms. She recounted a day when Vincent had arrived, concealing a wound and going straight to his room. Dr. Gachet had come later but had not removed the bullet, even though he could have. In the afternoon, Theo had arrived, distraught, screaming and questioning Vincent about what had happened to him. Theo had stayed with Vincent on his final day. The next morning, Vincent passed away, taking the mystery of his death to the grave. Louise Chevalier, the innkeeper, shared her memories of Vincent with Armand. She described Vincent as a quiet man with a lively spirit, adding that they had liked him, and he had reciprocated their affection. He had been content in their little corner of the world. Vincent's passion for painting was unrivaled. He painted in all weather conditions. Louise emphasized that he had a special love for the rivers. She encouraged Armand to speak to the boatman, who could provide more insights into Vincent's life. Following her advice, Armand approached the boatman and asked about Vincent. The boatman explained that Vincent had frequented the area before dawn to capture a unique quality of light on his canvases. Sometimes he painted, while other times he simply observed quietly. In the later summer months, he often came with Gachet's daughter, Margaret, who was equally reserved. Vincent and Margaret would row the boat together, engaging in deep conversations. The boatman last saw them together, and shortly afterward, Vincent passed away. He suggested that Armand visit Margaret and inquire further about Vincent's life. Returning to the inn, the innkeeper offered Armand a drink. As he sipped it, he asked about the relationship between Vincent and Margaret Gachet. The innkeeper mentioned that Margaret still visited Vincent's grave daily, indicating a close bond between them. She also disclosed that, according to the housekeeper, Dr. Gachet had disapproved of Vincent spending time with his daughter. Armand abruptly left for the church, waiting for the housekeeper to arrive. Once she arrived, Armand approached her, standing by the church wall. The housekeeper was surprised to see him in the church, mentioning that she had seen him intoxicated even on a Sunday, the Lord's Day. With the church bell ringing, she went inside, leaving Armand to continue his quest for answers. Armand then proceeded to Dr. Gachet's house, where he spotted Margaret playing the piano from a window. She noticed him, allowed him inside, and remarked that it had taken him quite some time to return. Armand explained his desire to unravel the mystery of Vincent's death, believing it could somehow help Vincent. Margaret cynically responded that it was too late, as Vincent was already gone. Armand countered that her daily ritual of bringing flowers to Vincent's grave might also be futile. She defended her actions, claiming they were out of respect. Margaret shared that Vincent had occasionally visited her father, as they both shared a love for art and admired the same painters. However, she denied any familial connection between them, asserting that Vincent had mainly come to see his father. She added that Vincent had painted at their house on her father's recommendation. Armand, determined to uncover the truth about Vincent's life and passing, returned to the inn after his conversation with Margaret. Sitting at a table, he tried to engage the innkeeper in conversation, but she was preoccupied with other customers and initially ignored him. When he did manage to speak with her, he mentioned his confrontation with Margaret and her denial of any friendship with Vincent. The innkeeper advised him not to trust the Gachets and shared her view that Vincent and Dr. Gachet were very different people beneath their outward appearances. She described Vincent as a kind man, unlike the snobbish Dr. Gachet. Armand inquired about whether she had met Vincent's brother, Theo, but she denied any personal interaction, stating that Theo only visited when invited by Dr. Gachet. She also mentioned that the day before Vincent's passing, he had been in a hurry, providing her with a list of painting supplies he needed to complete a painting for delivery. She suggested that something sudden might have led to his demise and advised Armand to open the letter Vincent had given him for hints. The innkeeper then escorted him to Vincent's room. In the room, Armand sat on the bed and opened the letter addressed to Theo and Joe. The letter conveyed Vincent's longing for his family in the south, with days feeling like weeks. He expressed hope that Theo and his family would visit him soon. The letter concluded with "Your loving Vincent." After reading it, Armand closed the letter and went to sleep in the room. During his slumber, he experienced a nightmarish vision of a wounded Vincent walking in a dark room, clutching his wound. As Vincent opened a door, a blinding light poured in, startling Armand awake. Sweating and disturbed, he left the inn, smoking a cigar. A young boy threw stones at him, prompting Armand to chase the boy to a peculiar hut with a wooden roof and door. The setting felt eerie, and he quickly exited. Returning to his room at the inn, Armand began writing a letter to his father, explaining that he had not yet met with the doctor. He expressed a growing sense that something was amiss and shared his determination to stay in Auvers until he unraveled the mystery. Armand ventured to the places Vincent had been seen on his last day, hoping to find clues. While in a field, he spotted the same boy who had thrown stones earlier. He called out to the boy, but the child ran away. Armand chased after him, but the boy disappeared into the trunk of a tree. An elderly man was working nearby, near the tree trunk. The elderly man in the field kindly offered assistance to Armand, inquiring if he needed any help. Armand asked about the young boy, who turned out to be the man's nephew and harmless. Armand then questioned the man about Vincent. The old man expressed skepticism about the idea that Vincent had shot himself in the fields, as there was no evidence to support it. He simply didn't believe the story. Louise Chevalier arrived in the field to gather some flowers and approached Armand. She informed him that Dr. Gachet would see him the following day. Armand asked her about the location where the three young men used to hang out and drink. She replied that it was in the fields. He also inquired about the gun Vincent had used, and she mentioned that it was a pistol belonging to Revue, who always kept it under his desk. Armand seemed dissatisfied with her answers, and she departed. Back at the inn, Armand quenched his thirst with a drink and asked the innkeeper about the lads who used to spend time with Vincent. She mentioned Secretan, but they were in Paris now. She recalled how Secretan and his friends had played pranks on Vincent, like putting a snake in his art supplies, which had nearly frightened Vincent to death. Armand then questioned her about the gun, but she stated that his father had sold it long before Vincent's passing. She advised him not to believe the housekeeper's gossipy falsehoods. The innkeeper handed Armand a letter, which revealed that Vincent had lost his job and led to him being out of the room for the night. Armand went to the boatman, who offered him some wine to keep warm. Armand explained that he was out of his room because he had inquired about the gun with Revue. The boatman informed him that the revolver had been sold to René, who had wanted to play the role of a cowboy. He also revealed that the lads had often bullied Vincent. Armand expressed regret that he hadn't done something to stop the bullying. As he became intoxicated, the boatman tried to help him, but Armand rejected the gesture, feeling that he would also betray him in friendship, just as he believed had been done to Vincent. The boatman pressed Armand further, questioning what he was doing for Vincent. Armand paused for a moment and admitted that he had never claimed to be Vincent's friend before walking away. Later, while intoxicated, Armand got into a fight with the locals who were picking on the peculiar child. He was trying to protect the child from their harassment. The next morning, Armand awoke in the police station, disoriented and weary from a restless night. The officer behind the desk inquired about his visit. Armand explained his mission to unravel the mysteries surrounding Vincent's life and death. The police officer revealed that he had been investigating too, harboring suspicions about Dr. Gachet since the day Vincent was found shot. Dr. Mazery had urged him to classify it as murder, not suicide. Armand's curiosity about Dr. Mazery grew, and he requested more information. Outside the station, he met an elderly gentleman tending to a field. Armand inquired about the peculiar child from the previous night. The old man, benevolent in his demeanor, clarified that the boy was his harmless nephew. Armand sought insights into Vincent's circumstances. The old man, though kind, doubted the suicide narrative. He saw no evidence to support it, casting a shadow of uncertainty over Vincent's tragic end. Louise Chevalier arrived, offering hope for answers. Dr. Gachet would see Armand the next day. Armand hurriedly boarded a horse-drawn carriage to make his way to the train station for his return journey to Arles. During the ride, he opened the letter he had received earlier. The letter conveyed that in the eyes of the world, Vincent may have been considered a nobody, but soon he would leave his mark through his work and reveal the depths of his heart. Upon his return to Arles, Armand sat on a bench. His father, who had been searching for him, approached and handed him a copy of a letter sent by Vincent's widow to Armand. With curiosity, he opened the letter and began reading. In the letter, Vincent expressed that for a painter, passing away was not a difficult thing, rather, it was the price to be paid to reach the stars. The letter ended with a heartfelt good night and the signature "Your loving Vincent."